Good evening and welcome to Fox News Primetime. I'm Trey Gowdy. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Well, that didn't last long. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the mainstream media love to talk about unity. These are the words of President Biden just moments after he took the oath of office.
My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this. Bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause.
Last night and early this morning, the United States Senate split 50-50 on a number of amendments. Democrats are using a process called reconciliation, which is a really weird word to use when there's no reconciliation at all. But they're using that process to bypass the Republicans. That's not unity, that's raw power. Yesterday, President Biden criticized former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo over foreign policy.
America is back. Diplomacy is back at the center of our foreign policy. We must restore the health and morale of our foreign policy institutions.
That's not unity. Kamala Harris thinks telling West Virginia coal miners to start clearing landmines is unifying. Probably because she will not be the one clearing those landmines. She even went to West Virginia to put pressure on a Democrat to get in line. That's not unifying either. That's just raw politics. Listen to what Democrat Senator Joe Manchin said in response.
I couldn't believe it. No one called me. We're going to try to find a bipartisan pathway forward. I think we need to, but we need to work together. That's not a way of working together.
And of course, next week, House and Senate Democrats are going to try to remove someone from office who isn't even in office, and then bar him from ever holding office again. They have no chance of a conviction. They have no chance of barring Donald Trump from future office. They cannot get a conviction, but they will march forward anyway, not because they think they can win in court, but because they think it will help them win elections. That doesn't sound very unifying. Unity is defined as a state of oneness, a state of being joined as a whole. The Senate's 50-50. The House is almost equally divided. That doesn't sound like oneness to me. So if it's unity we're looking for, it's not going to come from a speech, and it's not going to come from government, and it's not going to come from politics. It's going to have to come from us. And it will be a process, sometimes a lengthy process. But like all journeys, you're not going to get there unless you start walking. The Super Bowl is Sunday. I probably won't watch because Dallas isn't playing. I'll probably go in the other room and watch Hallmark movies with my wife. Actually, that sounds awful. So I probably will watch the game after all. There are rules in football. There are rules in golf. We have rules in every facet of life. Some are written, most are not, but we know them and we follow them. In politics, there are just no rules. The objective is simply to win. The end justifies the means, and power is the currency of politics. I mean, if you're serious about unity, stop looking for the 50-50 issues and focus on those things for which there is consensus. We want this virus defeated. We want jobs. We want economic opportunity. We want our children to be educated. We want to be safe. Americans would rather see a sermon than hear a sermon. So why don't we start there? Practice what you preach. Now that would really be unifying. Here to respond, former White House press secretary and Fox News contributor, the great Ari Fleischer. Ari, how are you?
Trey, great to see you.
What do you make of this unity juxtaposed with 50-50 votes in the Senate and using the reconciliation process to jam something down people's throats?
Well, first of all, your line about, I've never heard that saying before, about Americans rather see a sermon than hear a sermon. That's a beautiful thing to say. That is, you just captured so much in that one sentence. But in terms of what we're seeing in Washington and with Joe Biden, the centrist, the man who wants to be a unifier, his whole soul is in it. What I've come to the conclusion is half his soul is in it, the other half of his soul is not in it, and Kamala Harris is going to cast the tie-breaking vote for his soul. Joe Biden wants to be the unifier, but he certainly isn't governing like the unifier. If he wanted to unify, there is no question we'd be on a bipartisan path right now. And there's nothing wrong with if you've got the votes, shove it through. But that's how LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, would govern, and he'd make no bones about it. He didn't say he was a unifier. Joe Biden said he's a unifier. He's not a unifier.
Well, let's just give Joe Biden the benefit of half the doubt. All right, the half of him that wants to be the unifier. I don't think any part of his base is going to let that half live very long. I mean, I don't think they're going to allow it. Am I wrong?
No, that's exactly the problem. That if he thinks he wants to be a unifier, he gets buffeted by the forces of progressivism, and he can't stand up to them because he's just too weak. And you saw it in his presidential run. When he ran for president, he abandoned many of the centrist positions he used to take as a senator. He used to be against taxpayer-funded abortions. He came out against it when he ran for president. He was a tough-on-crime senator. Then he came out and did a 180 on that. He kept backing off Joe Biden's old positions to increasingly become the voice and the spokesman for the progressive left, to the point where Bernie Sanders said he'll be the most progressive president we've ever had. So Biden is proving Bernie right, and that's a real problem for America.
Ari, one of the reasons I love to talk to you is because I think you make an effort to be fair and you kind of call it like you see it. You had one of the toughest jobs in all of Washington, sitting in the White House, dealing with the press corps. Has the media changed since you were in the Bush administration, and how do we get that societal referee back?
Trey, it's night and day. It is 100% different. Back then, and that was just, what, almost 20 years ago, the press was liberal. They'd been liberal for decades. But they acted and tried to be down the middle. They did think it was part of their job to report the news fully, fairly, and accurately. And poll after poll, the Gallup poll, the Pew poll, shows that the majority of the American people do not think that the press tells the news fully, fairly, and accurately. They're too biased from the start. They're too liberal when they come into journalism school. They're made even more liberal in the course of their political careers, and especially for younger journalists now who are lighting newsrooms on fire with rebellions against fairness, against neutrality. Journalism is broken, Trey, and the only thing that'll make it come back is if when they talk about diversity, they actually practice ideological diversity. It would strengthen them. It would let them see half the country that they really don't do a good job seeing. And it would stop them from making a lot of mistakes because they wouldn't have ideological blinders on, where the only people they bounce things off of are similar-minded people. That's the only thing I think that'll save journalism.
All right, we got about a minute, but you talked about newsrooms should be split. Speaking of split, we're going to have a jury trial of sorts next week with a split jury. I don't think a single one of them has not already made up their minds. What's the smart way for Republicans to handle next week? Get it over as quickly as possible, or what would you suggest?
Well, the Democratic strategy is consistent with everything they did after Joe Biden became the nominee. Continue to shine a light on Donald Trump and keep all the lights off of Joe Biden. This is their strategy. They don't want the focus to be on Joe Biden. So the Republicans, this is a waste of time, as you point out. Donald Trump will not be convicted. Donald Trump will not be removed from office. He already is. He won't be barred from running again. That's a decision the American people should make. The Democrats have an interest in stretching this out. Republicans should keep it short. It's a waste of time. Get it over with.
Great advice. I hope they're listening. Ari, thank you. Hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Trey.